What does it cost you to put a guy on a job for an hour? What's your overhead? What's your average labor cost? I'm Ron Ramsden. I'm a DYB coach, also painting contractor here in Massachusetts. We're going to walk through a small example of how to calculate a labor cost. What is your labor burden to put someone on a job? I know when I started out, I'd walk through and say, okay, for every day we're going to be working somewhere, it's going to be X number of dollars. But I'm not going to be honest with you. I didn't know then what I know now, and I was basically just taking a stab at an hourly rate. I would thought if I was making $25 an hour back then, man, that was $1,000 a week. I was doing okay. This was 18 years ago. But you know something? If you really figure it out, I was probably making about $6 an hour. So let's walk through an example. I'm going to also give you a couple ideas how to reduce your overall labor burden on yourself, and hopefully be able to save you some money down the road. So anyways, my example here, it's labor up there. This is a person, a company with 4 employees. One of them could be yourself. Maybe you have a crew of 4 people and you sit back and you eat bonbons all day. But anyways, the painter one is making $12 an hour. Of course, this is different for every single company. I just took a bunch of numbers and threw them up there. So painter one is $12 an hour. Your second painter is at $15 an hour. Your third painter, he's pretty good. He's at $20 an hour. And Mr. Crew Leader is at $23 an hour. So if you just look at those, and real quickly, 12, 15, plus 20, and 23 is $70 an hour. So these 4 guys in the back of your mind are costing you $70 an hour. Wrong. Wrong, wrong. Stop, stop. If that's what you're thinking, watch this. I want to just open your eyes up on what it's really costing you and what your profit is on top of all that. So I'm not going to tell you how much you can charge, because that's what you have to figure out, is how much money you can charge. And what you're, obviously what we're in, myself up here in New England and maybe down South California, Colorado, wherever you may be, there's going to be differences in employment cost, overhead, state taxes are different from on to on. So anyways, let's look at that again. So it's $70 an hour divided by 4 because you have 4 employees. So your average hourly rate is right here. It's $17.50 an hour. Great. So every guy is on the average costing you $17.50 an hour. Wrong. Let's go over some more numbers. So let's figure out what it's going to cost you, and we're going to figure out what it's costing you on a yearly basis in some ways to save you some money. So average with 4 guys, so we have 4 guys here, and guys or girls, it doesn't matter, and I don't want to offend anybody, but on average, 4 painters. We have 4 painters. So 4 painters working a 40-hour week, so you have 160 hours right here, 160 hours. 160 hours a week. So we're going to count on 50 weeks per year. 2 weeks they don't work. You might even calculate differently if you're going to factor in weather-related items, snow, rain, whatsoever. But for easy calculations here, we're going to figure on 50 weeks a year. So we have 160 hours, so 50 weeks a year. So they're going to work 50. This is your 50 weeks. At 160 hours per week, that brings you down to 8,000 workable hours a year. So at least you know how many hours you have to produce. You're going to be producing on 8,000 hours a year. Now let's just glance over here at some of the overhead costs. Like Vanner. So here we are. So of course our biggest one right here is labor. We have labor. Labor, it's got to differ for every single company, but on ours right here, our average labor is $17.50. One of the things that first popped into my head is my workman's comp. I just paid this bill. Well, actually, it's automatically deducted. I pay weekly, but I saw that on my email that came through as workman's comp. Then we have taxes. This is where it's going to differ for every single state. Massachusetts, our state tax is 0.625. So 0.265. Of course, then we have federal. We also have unemployment, which they call it something else right now. And then, of course, the other little taxes they throw in there, and you're not supposed to figure out what they are. So between that, and then we have workman's comp. And I'm going to just tell you something. Between this right here, workman's comp, all my taxes, and I'm going to look over here to my liability insurance on top of that. My workman's comp, I'm paying roughly 23% on top of my my labor rate. So take whatever labor rate you want without any of this other overhead in here is 23% higher, just to make everybody else happy. Unemployment and workman's comp along with the other insurances. So if you were paying $10 an hour in Massachusetts, add the 23%. In my case, it's now $12.30. That's some of the overhead that we don't always think about. That's the little overhead. Now let's start adding some of the other stuff up. For some of you out there, this might not be it, but I want you to open your head, open your ears, open your mind about different overheads, and you can calculate your own. Office rent, trucks, cars, whatever you drive for a vehicle, maybe have 2 or 3 of them out there. We have internet, we have gas for the vehicles, gas for your estimating car. We have cell phones. Do you have yourself? Do you have your iPads? Things like that, laptops. You also got to think about things like laptops, cell phones. They have to be replaced down the road. So you should have a little kitty, a drip account to put some money aside for overhead like that down the road. We have apps and software. Do you use an online, or have you purchased some software to do your estimating? Like we use Basecamp, we have Estimate Rocket. All those things. Those things all cost money. Maybe you have some extra storage out in the cloud somewhere that you're paying $5 a month or something like that for. Associations, networking associations. You know them all, BNI, LaTip, on and on. Rotary Chamber, your annual dues for those. And there's also some networking that you're going to be doing, and that's going to cost some money. And that also includes your PDCA. PDCA, that's you might get a lot for your value, but you still have to shell out some money to be part of these things. Okay, let's talk about tools. If you supply tools to your crew, that's a cost you should factor in and break it down to a weekly allotment. So then you can actually bring it down and allot it to an hourly rate. So it might be cents, it might be a penny, 2 pennies, 3 pennies, 5 pennies, $1, whatever works for you. Like I said, insurances, we have liability, we have a liability insurance, car insurance, and myself, I have an umbrella on top of everything else. Then if you have a shop, depending if you have a shop or not, we have electric, we have or gas, maybe you heat with gas. You also have some kind of insurance for the shop, just not, I wouldn't say homeowners, but something like that, a business insurance. For Massachusetts, we have a state licensing, not for painters. Painters aren't licensed, but we have it's a home improvement contractor license, $200 or $300 a year, every other year, something like that. Excise tax, those are on our vehicles. We have an additional tax on our vehicles every year. We don't always know what it's going to be. If it's a new vehicle, I'll just let you, if you have a brand new pickup truck, it's about $500 to $700 for the first year, and it drops accordingly all the way down to $37.50 for a 20-year-old vehicle. So entertainment. Do you buy the guys your crew food? Maybe you take someone else out out for dinner. Maybe you meet with your accountant and buy them dinner. You have your counting, your yearly tax preparing. You also have your payroll costs. If you don't do your payroll in-house, maybe you do it, hire someone to do that, so that's a different work. So your networking trip, maybe you travel, maybe DYB, maybe you come to one of our get-togethers. Maybe you go to the PDCA National, maybe you go to a cabinet course in another state and have to stay over. That's a cost that you're going to have to figure out. Donations, you know what that is. Some we love to give and some we give just to give. Big equipment purchases. Now, do you buy a lift? Do you buy new sprayers? Well, that is not a direct cost. That's something you, accounting-wise, we're not going to go into how you break that down in the accounting world, but you still have to pay for it. So do you actually use this, break it down and put some money aside into a drip, into a separate account for those big purchases like we talked about before, for maybe a big purchase of a tool or a car or a vehicle or something like that? I know you're saying car, you're saying car, it's car. Okay, so truck repairs. You're driving an older truck, older vehicles, something breaks down, or they need new tires after a year or so. Also, like I said, the drip. This drip is big for us. This drip is our business savings. Drip is our retirement and things like that. So vacation pay. Do you give out vacation pay? You have to allot that. That's overhead for the business. Okay, shirts, signs, cost. I mean, shirts we go through. How many times twice a year you purchase shirts and sweatshirts and possibly hats? And do you buy your crew their painter's whites? That's all overhead that got to be broken down into a cost. You want to break it down to an hourly cost over the course of the year. So then we also have perks and bonuses. Do you give out bonuses? What are your perks for your crew? Like I said, painter's whites. Maybe that's a perk for your crew. Maybe it's a bonus. Maybe it's a purchasing something. Maybe purchasing them new tools. Whatever it may be, you got to understand all this adds up. You know, if this was in thousands and thousands, obviously it's in thousands of dollars a year. And then what you want to do is you want to break it down all the way to how many hours you're going to work. And how do you reduce the active cost? So if like we talked about, the $17.50 an hour, and I told you just in Massachusetts with my taxes, as well as my workman's comp and unemployment insurance, adds another. This is just for me. It'll change for everybody else. It's 23%. So 23% on top of an hourly rate is, you know, for every dollar it's 23 cents. But if you add all this other up, all these other things up and divide, some of these things aren't going to change if you have 4 people or if you have 8 people or 6 people. You add one more person, your state license isn't going to change. So you're actually reducing your labor cost. Some of your other things, your donations might not change. Your networking trip doesn't change. Some of your insurances won't change. Obviously, workman's compensation will change. Also, your office rent's not going to change. Your internet's not going to change. Your cell phone's not going to change. So there's a lot of things that by adding additional workers, increasing your workload, how much you can get done, you're actually going to reduce your overhead cost per person. Is it also, if you have a bunch of very experienced workers, maybe you're more in the 23 hour job. So if you had 4 guys at $20 an hour, so you have 4 here at 20, you have $80 an hour. So if you had 3 guys at 20 is 60, and then you had 1 at 12 because he's a prep guy, you now have a burden of $72 for all 4 guys being on. That's a 10% savings right there in overall cost. Obviously, you're guessing this $12 an hour isn't going to produce what the other guys are. Maybe they will. But also, why are you paying a $20 an hour painter to move drop cloths, load the truck, clean up the truck, vacuum the floor, move furniture back and such? So some of the ways to get your overhead down. So I know we didn't dig into what you should charge because that's what you should charge. Your overhead and my overhead is completely different, but some of the same factors. Doesn't matter if you're a 1-man or 2-man show or a 50-person show. So anyways, I'd love to help you in the future. If you want to contact me, many of you have, ron@dybcoach.com. That's ron@dybcoach. Send me an email. Find me on Facebook. More than happy to talk with you, chat with you through Facebook. Or give me a call. Send me a note you'd like to chat. I'd love to do that too. I'm Ron Ramsden. I'm a DYB coach, also painting contractor here up in Massachusetts. You can work in the bucket. You can work out of the bucket. I'm just helping everybody work on their business. Have a great day.